Então, vamos? Since I believe I was born, I've always been very passionate about space and about flying. Since a very young age, first of all, I wanted to be in astrophysics, and then I wanted to be an astronaut. And then flying a little bit lower, since Portugal has no space program, I decided to pursue the career of being an airline pilot. My first experience as an airline or something related to airlines was around the age of 17. I was a flight attendant for a couple of months, and since then I had decided that it was a career that I had to pursue. I believe I have many references throughout my life that had made me follow my dreams, whatever they were. The first one and the strongest one being my mother. My mother is a woman full of strength. She's for sure one of my heroes. Is a person that, since we were born, me and all my brothers, she told us that we could be whatever we wanted to be. If it was to clean the streets, we were going to be the best ones at cleaning the streets. If it was to be a professional surfer or an iron woman, that we could be whatever we wanted to be. My father, as an extremely determined person, a very hardworking, as well, passed me those principles. If I had to say I had been inspired, a lot of it has to be with my family, who they are. And then in my brother, I also have a very inspiring person that is very courageous and has done whatever he wanted to in life. Then, of course, I have other people that I have admired in my life. Einstein as a reference, I have Stephen Hawking that challenged everything and everyone to pursue their dreams, although everyone told them differently at a very young age. And of course, Amelia Earhart. So specifically in aviation, I have to say Amelia Earhart has been one of my heroes. I've started flying in Cascais. I became an airline pilot in Cascais, and then I did my first air show as an aerobatic pilot in Cascais, and that was a big mark in my life as a personal achievement mark. Then I have to say, being in the Middle East, becoming the first Airbus instructor, female Airbus instructor at the age of 26. I think that was a mark. Opening the aerobatic school in Abu Dhabi. And finally, last but not least, that was for sure a moment in my career that I will never forget, to have the first female aerobatic Arab pilot. That was a big mark in my career that I'm very proud. As long as you do something that you love, and you keep telling this to kids especially. Yesterday I had several kids coming to the flight deck, we had a delay, and they were looking to the overhead panel and to the cockpit and said, there's so many buttons. How do you study all this? And I never looked at it and thought, oh, there's so many buttons, because when you love something, you just study. You study, you prepare yourself, you do whatever you can to be the best at your job, just for yourself. And it doesn't cost in the end anything. And keep being curious. I think that is one of the key factors in life to be a good professional. Keep being curious. As a person as well. So first of all, I was lucky enough to marry someone who's on the same job as me. So that's half the job done. He understands my crazy schedules. He understands when I don't sleep home. He understands when I'm not home for Christmas or breakfast or dinner or any of that through several years. So as long as you choose a life partner, or a family that embraces your career, that helps a lot as well on a personal level. Being comprehensive, I think, is the key to success, and respecting each other and whatever the other person chooses. I think one of the things I love the most about my job is the fact that I see the sun every day, and that I take off and it's plus 40 degrees Celsius and I land in Moscow and it's minus 40. And you get to see different people, different scenarios and different things every day. There's not one flight that is exactly the same as the other. So it's a challenge of being different every day. Another factor that I love is that you get to work with different people every day. So you get to know different people, meet their backgrounds, their cultural, their history, their country sometimes. That is very interesting and very nice as well. Aerobatics will always be a part of me, and I'm sure that in the near future I will compete again. Probably I was the youngest, and I hope to one day be the oldest woman in the world doing aerobatics. The youngest one, I didn't meant to do it, but the oldest, I'm going to be sure that I will target to be the one doing it. It will always be my passion. It will always be the love of my life that I couldn't continue to have a relationship because there's other priorities in life. So basically I had to make some changes, especially when I left the Middle East and came to Portugal. There's other personal items in my life that I want to take care as well. So I haven't resigned. I continue to implement aerobatic schools. I continue to write aerobatic manuals. Nowadays I fly a lot less aerobatics, but it's for sure something that I will get back to. Something curious about aerobatics is that it came into my life as a hobby. And as life went through, I started having a heavier and heavier weight in my career as an airline pilot. And curious enough, it was the reason that took me to the Middle East, because I wanted to found an aerobatic school. And we're talking about 2009, 2010, 2011. Things were hard in Portugal, hard in Europe, basically because of the crisis. So I found a window in the Middle East to make those dreams come true. Weird enough, in the Middle East. But that actually happened, and more or less at the same time that Air France accident occurred in 2009. And the industry has found out what I've always supported and believed, that was that all airline pilots should have an aerobatic training. It's the same as having a bus driver having a Formula One course. So it makes you a better professional to have different experiences within your area, whatever those experiences are, even if at the first glance it's not obvious. So, and nowadays, across all industry, in all world, all new airline pilots have to go through some kind of aerobatic training. So I continue to write those manuals, be a consultant on those courses for several airlines and several airline training organizations around the world. So it's still a part of myself in a different way, but has made myself pursue a different course within my career as an airline pilot, for sure. When I decided to become an airline pilot, both my parents were very supportive and keen on me having a college degree. At the same time that I was doing the initial pilot medical course or medical license, I acknowledged that one of the ladies that was there had just lost her medical. And the problem of being an airline pilot is that your license is always related to a medical license, which is something you cannot control. If you start seeing worse or if you start hearing worse, it's something you can't really control. And with that, you lose your license and you're unable to practice your job anymore. The first step, I have to say, I think both came at the same time, was me being afraid of losing my medical one day and losing my job. And the second being my parents being very supportive on me having a college degree as a backup plan, as a plan B. It's something that I've always loved doing, talking and writing. So journalism became a part of me, and I've used it in a different way. I think I've developed a lot of skills, especially as an instructor, and even as a captain in the airline industry. A better way to communicate, a better way to deal with my colleagues. So there's a lot of things across different industries that are interconnected and that I can see through these two different industries that have actually helped me a lot, the journalism course in the airline business. And everyone can be multidimensional as long as you're passionate about it. So as long as you find a passion in life, whatever that passion is, I have aviation, but then I also have family and I also have sports. And I also do sports with family and aviation when traveling. So I think one of the most important things is for you to be passionate about life. And then within life, whatever is the aspects of life that you love, to pursue those. Then to be determined in the way that my dad usually says that it's a little bit stubbornness. I like to say determined, I think it sounds better. But basically those two things, be passionate, be determined, and then find clearly objectives of things you want in life. I want to support others in becoming pilots, for example. So how am I going to achieve that? And to use the same strategy as I use on a flight deck or as in aerobatics, to use the same in life. So you find something that you love, you set up an objective, and then you pursue that objective. Nowadays we have a name that is actually quite accurate, which is to prepare for the startle. It's something that you were not expecting. And the airline industry has actually swift pilot training, from ticking in the box training, and doing engine failure, emergencies, emergency descents, etc., to train startle, which is to train for the unexpected. And the reason being is that, for example, the last 10 years of aviation accidents, all the accidents hadn't occurred previously exactly the same. So the emergencies do always come in a different way, and we have always trained exactly the same way since the 70s. So we had to adjust pilot training to new challenges, which are, for example, multicultural environments. So nowadays we train something that is training startle according to what the other pilot does. So if the other pilot does something unexpected, this was not trained before in the last 30 years at all. So basically we have adjusted pilot training to this new event, which is startle. With that being said, how do you train for that? How do you train for the unexpected? Well, you don't train events. You don't train, for example, in my area, you don't train an engine failure. You train competencies. And in aviation, we have defined 8 or 9, depending on the part of the world that you have, 9 competencies. And they are, for example, situational awareness, knowledge, application of procedures, communication, leadership and teamwork, decision-making. These are flight path management, manual control, flight path management, automation. So we have defined these competencies that pilots must have. And we have looked at both accidents and incidents that occurred as well. That is a change in the industry. So until now, we have always trained for the last accident. So what have they done wrong? And let's correct that. And now you start seeing that there's a change in the industry. So they have done wrong, and let's correct that and train for better. But look at the crews that have done right, like the Hudson. And what have they done right? And what have they developed with that? For example, the Hudson event, the pilot had, across his career, a lot of different experiences. For example, aerobatic and energy management. So he had developed competencies that had led to the success on that day. And you have to look at other industries and basically apply the same, which is, what are the things that went right actually? Why did they went right? And let's try to do more of that. And if you can't reproduce exactly the same event, for example, the emergencies, as I was mentioning, they never happen exactly the same. So the aircraft's not the same, the speed is not the same, the birds are not the same, etc. The environment is never the same, as I was saying before. That is one of the things that I love about my job, but it's always a threat. So in order to train for that, you need to develop different competencies. And you can do that by training different set of events, different crewings, different communication, different skills. That is a challenge, but one of the things that is changing and that I love the most about my job as well is to now train a different set of skills. I think I closed the door, more or less, in the Middle East when I started having female pilots as my trainees. So I've decided that the job there was done when I was able to pass the message to other female, especially in that area of the world, that went through a lot more than I've ever, or any of us in Europe, for example, will have to go through to decide that they will become airline pilots. So to set up an example, and once I've done that, I kind of felt fulfilled in the Middle East. Different than I expected, actually. I thought that after I opened the aerobatic school, the job was done, but I still didn't feel completely fulfilled until I had that passing of a message and a social responsibility. And with that, when the challenge was thrown to me by EasyJet to be Amy Johnson Initiative, I started noticing that in Europe we do have a lot of opportunities. There's the financial aspect that is a struggle to some people that want to become airline pilots. But nowadays we also have means and ways like the Amy Johnson Initiative, where we actually sponsor fully the pilot course from the initial course until you're flying the airline for women and men. That is something that I want to make sure that the message is passed. I do not want to inspire only women to become airline pilots, but to become whatever they want, but also men. That there's jobs like, for example, being a male nurse is as hard as a woman being a female captain. Across the globe, of course, there are countries where women's only and sole job is to be mothers. They don't even think about having a career path or a career at all. And as traveling around the world, I started noticing that I could pass, even if it's in the smallest way, just to go to schools and to tell my story. And not that is a big help, but at least it gives them the chance of seeing a small light in the end of the tunnel of opportunity. If this woman could do this, maybe I can do something else and something completely different. I do not look like an aerobatic instructor, an airline pilot, an airline captain. I don't look like that because people are expecting another different look. Someone taller, manlier, bigger, and it's wrong because you can be whatever you want, however you look, whatever you want to do, as long as you have the principles behind. So nowadays, I think my next job or the next things that I would like to make or to finish is to find a way to support others to become either airline pilots or anything in the airline industry that come from countries that they could never, if they don't find someone who helps them pursue their dreams, they would never find another way. It's completely impossible. I think it's one of my responsibilities in life is to continue to pass this message and to show my path. Not that is the right one to do, but at least it's a path. The name of my aerobatic aircraft was Dream Chaser, and it was not out of the blue. It was because I do think that if I am a dream chaser due to my parents and my family and my life, that I've always pursued my dreams, I would love to inspire others to do the same. So my next life goals are, for sure, one is to inspire others and to help financially, educationally, in whatever ways I can to help others to pursue their dreams. That's one. Another one, it's my life goal as a professional to pursue the dream of becoming a test pilot, which is something I will never give up on. And I always apply to being an astronaut, always, when it opens. It was never called, but I always apply. And then, of course, to continue to fly aerobatics at a very old age. We don't choose family. We choose the friends we have, and I always say my friends are the family I chose, but we don't choose family. And I was very lucky to be born in a family of two amazing parents, an amazing stepdad and stepmom, and amazing brothers and sisters. Everyone is very inspiring in my family and pushes further. So I was lucky in that sense, because you don't choose. They've always inspired us to go further, push further. I think, for example, in the sense of gender equality, I've never known what is that because my parents, as a kid, I played soccer with my dad. There was no playing soccer just with the boys. We were raised, all of us playing soccer. And with my mom, we would all do things together with her. Horseback riding or swimming. There was never a gender thing in our family. I'm pretty sure they didn't do this consciously. It's just the way they are. But it actually ended up solving a lot of barriers that me and my sister would find in life. And as well, the way that my brothers would treat women. So gender equality, it's one of the things they've always inspired, is being determined, finding something you love about it, and then pursue it, no matter what that is. A lot of good examples. Sports, for example. Sports give you discipline, give you a sense of teamwork, give you a sense of respect for others and others' opinion, a set of discipline in terms of the rules that you have to respect, to win or lose and still respect the end result. So there are a lot of things that I don't think they did it with the end goal, but in the end, I think they turn out to be really amazing parents, and I'm super lucky that I have them. One of the biggest challenges we had is communication, which is one of the competencies and one of the skills that is most important in our job, as in majority of the jobs, let's face it, that you have to deal with other people, is communication. And your ability to communicate at a right, timely manner, and that your message is sent across and received well in a way that you meant. For example, I have a story of me in the simulator with a captain from an Asian culture that is very rigid in terms of the hierarchy. So it's a culture that does not accept very well the fact that the first officer, I was a first officer at a time, a female at 26, and the captain was very senior and from an Asian culture, again, that is super rigid in terms of hierarchy. I had to come across him to say that I did not agree with his decision. And you can't say, I disagree with you, because that immediately creates a huge barrier in the communication. It can be offensive, and you don't want to have a break in the communication between the two flight deck members, basically. When I started there, we didn't have these tools yet. So one of the ways we had to, or I found to say, was, I'm uncomfortable with your decision. He asked me, really? So what's wrong with your chair? I said, no, because in his mind was so outrageous that I was challenging him that the only problem with uncomfortable had to be with the chair. There was no other way that I could be uncomfortable with his decision. I could not disagree with him that it was not on the table. Anyway, so after this, we started digging. We need to find a way to communicate between us that is not offensive, that we don't have to lose time in case of something abnormal, for example, that we can't lose time, but we need to send the message immediately. We need to stop this, and then we need to do A, B, and C. With that, we came across with several, first of all, a decision-making module that everyone did exactly the same way, a decision-making module. What are the facts? What are our options? What are we going to decide? What are the risks, etc. So we had a decision-making module that was super strict. And then within that decision-making module, when we assessed our situation awareness and our level of comfort with the decision, with what was going on, etc., we had to communicate with each other what was our situation awareness level and our level of agreement between the two of us. And we said that with colors. And if I was comfortable with your decision and I agreed, I would say I'm in the green. If I was uncomfortable, I would say I'm in the amber. If I really disagreed, I would say I'm in the red. So we had ways to communicate with each other by color coding, which sounds very basic, but in the end, if you think about it, it's what you want, especially in a stress situation. You want simple things. You want green, amber, or red. And the other person already knows if it's green, we can continue like this. If it's amber, we need to buy time, change the plan, and change the mission. Or if it's red, we need to stop immediately and then directly ask, what is the problem? You need to tell me so that we fix this. So we had a certain set of tools, basically, to use in a daily life, in a daily operation, to basically be able to overcome the cultural background and differences. Another cultural challenge I found, for example, that is always a story I like telling, is that little things were the ones that were the most difficult one, not the big things in the Middle East. So when we set up the flight school in Al Ain, in Abu Dhabi, to set up the aerobatic school, the first day I arrived there with the aircrafts, etc., in the uniform, and after everything was already rolling, and so I asked, can I go to, so where's the bathroom? And they look at each other and I was like, what bathroom? Bathroom. Oh, the female bathroom. It's in the other building in the terminal. That was like 30 minutes away. There was no female bathroom. There was no female bathroom because there hadn't been another female before. So the simple fact of going to the bathroom for me was a challenge because I had to lose basically 30 minutes going and 30 minutes coming back. And of course, in a very expedite way, they figured that out and they solved it. And then the man stayed without a bathroom for a couple of days so that I could have my own bathroom. In the anger, in the Middle East, small things like that became a challenge. I had many failures in my career. I had an airline that I applied that was my dream when I was 23 that I didn't got in. I had engine failures, I had emergencies, I had frustrations, I had days that didn't went as I expected. I had many failures in my career. I cannot point one, but I know that all of them, without exception, had made me a better professional than the successes. So I had many. I think everyone has. Just have to be honest with yourself. I do think this is one of the keys to success in life. Be curious, continue to study, and continue to prepare yourself. Another one is always be humble and be ready to listen. I had a friend many years ago that said, we have 2 years and 1 month, and that is for a reason, and it's to listen more and to talk a little bit less. Well, for myself, especially as a woman and as a captain, that is kind of hard to do, to listen more and to talk less. But it's true, it's one of the keys in life and the keys to success. And then as well is to find something you love, be passionate about it, educate yourself. It costs a lot, you need to sacrifice a lot. Nothing good comes easy. Basically, when you love something, everything is worth it.